following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. Hello, listeners around the world on radio streaming and podcast services. This is It's Not Therapy. I'm Liana Kersner, and I am not a therapist, but I am your source for navigating the madness of mental health using my top 10 sayings for going good crazy. This week, we're talking about starting stuff. It's that time of year, at least here in Canada, where we're finally convinced that winter is really over. The weather is not too hot, not too cold, so it's time to do stuff. But after a really long winter, doing stuff doesn't just happen. Now, my productivity go-to is returning guest Stephen Puri from thesukkah.co, and he'll be joining us after the break. We pre-recorded this interview, and it turned out to be a much more wide-ranging and, I won't say complicated, but branching conversation. That's usually what Stephen and I do when we talk. But this particular issue engaged far more things than I suspected. I suspected it was just going to be a discussion of executive function tips and tricks. Oh, no, it wasn't. But let's start there anyway, because that is the starting point. Executive function is one of those things that is a mental health and productivity buzzword. People use it all the time. They don't necessarily know what it means. Executive functions are the mental processes that people use to manage tasks, achieve goals, get stuff done, right? Sounds simple, but experts dump these into different categories, and the language is different for different methodologies. We are focusing on the executive function of task initiation, otherwise known as the skill of starting a task without excessive delay or procrastination, or for some people, starting a task at all. And task initiation is a complex blend of organizing and goal setting and self-monitoring, working memory, attention, inhibition, all that other cognitive stuff, right? So even that one specific executive function challenge is a bunch of different things. That's what makes the simple task of just starting something not so simple. When we start a task, we have stories we tell ourselves about the task. And confidence isn't about the difficulty of the task. You know, confidence is our faith in whether we think we can actually accomplish the task, no matter how difficult or easy we think it might be for other people. And this is where the head fake starts. But I will save this for the discussion with Stephen Puri after our first break in about 2 minutes. This is a common challenge for people. For those of you who have no problem starting stuff, trust me, it's common. I used to have a lot of problems starting stuff. The tyranny of the blank page, as you'll hear in the interview, was strong for me. But I learned tips and I learned things, and now I can tell myself, just start. But when I first started, that didn't work because I didn't know what just start was. Sort of the storage box for the different tools that was in that box. It's a heuristic. And if you don't have a functional heuristic for starting tasks, even the simplest things like making yourself breakfast or washing dishes can seem insurmountable. Now, depression can cause this, but so can obviously conditions like ADHD, post-traumatic stress, numerous other things. But no matter where you're coming from in this, hopefully in the show that follows, there will be something that you can at least try to start stuff easier. Questions, comments, any feedback, Liana at nottherapyshow.com or at nottherapyshow on social media. Stephen Puri from the sukkah.co. I love this guest. He is so fun, but he is also just full of information, but he presents it in a way that's so good you don't realize you learned a lot until after the fact. Stephen Puri, starting stuff when we come back on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back and It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist, and I'm super, super stoked to have returning guest Stephen Puri of the Sukkah Company. Sorry, Stephen, I made your last name sound like baby food, which is probably right in your
Which is so appropriate. Somewhere in your mind, you're like, he's a 7-month-old. He probably purees. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, puree, Puri. And Stephen's back. The Sukkah Company is a focus
and still not a therapist, by the way.
Still not a therapist. Absolutely not. Less and less every day. But the sukkah.co, SUKHA.co. It's an amazing site. I have recommended it all over the place, and people have started
getting
asking
tingles
me.
Already.
I know, it's like, hey, product placement. But we're talking about starting stuff this week, Stephen. The cold start problem. The second hardest thing is often finishing, but you can figure out what your ending is before you start. You know, this time of year, it's finally nice in Canada for all the 3 months. We're starting to want to get stuff done, and projects just linger and linger and linger.
I have to interrupt because you just said something that was so present for me, because I was just part of a conversation on Thursday or Friday on a roundtable debate around among writers, do you need to know where you will end when you're writing a mystery? And there was an active debate about some people who are on the side of, I want to do my first draft with the characters revealing to me who's the murderer, sort of thing. And then I'll go back and see the red herrings and the clues to that. But I kind of don't want to know. And other people being like, how do you write like that?
Yeah.
How do you not?
I've written precisely one mystery in my entire life, and I actually had to write it forward first and then piece it back together in the story. It is difficult. You're like thinking forwards and backwards at the exact same time, and people who are asking, where do I get this? It's not published yet. Stephen is very good at getting information like this out of me. So yeah, and that I was so psyched out about that. It took me a long time to start because I was scared of it, right? Now, that's part of it, but sometimes it's also, everybody has reasons why you can't do it, and we don't focus enough on the reasons why we can. You know, just start.
This is like Tickle Me Elmo. You know, these are things I love to talk about. So you're just like, hey, Stephen, chocolate. Would you like some? Let's talk about these, right?
That tickles. Yeah.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
So
how do you just start something? I know it's a huge question, but you're the expert. Where do we begin on beginning?
Well, let us humbly say I have happily spent a lot of the last 10 years reading the experts, meeting the experts, debating stuff. Met Cal Newport, met Ryan, but a lot of the people around here never got to meet Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, which would have been amazing. But that ship has sailed, sadly. So anything really smart and helpful that I say, I just want to respect the people who've come before that have really, laid out a lot of these ideas for us. Okay. That said, I'm God and I know everything. No, I'm kidding. And we're back.
Excellent mic technique on that one.
Exactly. Don't take that clip out of
voice of God. Yeah.
So there are a number of different branches from what you said. I think the thing that unifies them all, the one thing that rings true, that unifies all the rings, is true for you and me, which is we recognize that in the course of doing something with our lives, that there's moments where for some reason the inertia of starting is really high. We're trying to understand that. It can be daunting in many ways. And there is a lot of research now on what that is, both psychologically and also kind of neurochemically, as we understand, like, ooh, I crave dopamine. My fingers reach over for my phone with Instagram, or TikTok on it, right? So let's talk about one of the basal things, which is if you do know what you need to do, which may very well be writing a book. It may be doing a business plan for a restaurant you want to open. It may be paying your bills, whatever the thing is, right? Two of the biggest obstacles are either it is unclear to you how to do it. Like it's daunting in a way where it's like, I know I must climb the mountain, but where is base camp? Is there a base camp? Where do I get? How do I find a map? I didn't even know where to begin asking questions, right? Or the thing is just intrinsically not meaningful to you. It's boring. Like I know I need to comb through my inbox for all those stupid bills and update the check register, make sure I'm not overdrawn it. But can I do it tomorrow? Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on both of those, and I love me a good flow state. And it's interesting that when, for those who haven't heard our previous chats, let me just give a short blurb on this. Flow state and the idea of flow goes back to Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who I think through the 60s and 70s kind of talked about this, and then finally wrote a book on it in the 80s called Flow. And he's like, there is this weird high concentrated state. And he was fascinated by the fact that when you spoke to high performers in different disciplines, whether athletes or scientists or authors or whatever, when they talked about the state they would go into, when they would actually do the thing they were famous for, they talked about it in very similar ways, even though the thing they did was very different, right? So he wrote this book saying, I kind of figured out there's a mental state you can go into. A lot of the people I spoke to called different things: in the zone, the muses singing, whatever it is, right? But there are some parts of it that are repeatable. Once it is recognized, then you can start to understand how to get into it. And it's really helpful because, you do lose track of time. You do your best work faster. You can feel uplifted at the end of working as opposed to just tired and depleted. And there are a lot of upsides. We talked about this in a previous episode. So I bring that up here because one of the things he wrote about is he said, all these people I spoke to, with all their little tricks about how to get into flow and be like amazing athletes and scientists and inventors and screenwriters, he's like, they can only do it if they thought what they were doing was meaningful. And that is something I want to sort of start our meal with by saying, there's a fundamental question to ask, which is not a judgment on yourself, which is just a way of expressing love towards the process of saying, okay, I feel resistance to this. Is it because it is too big and daunting and I don't know where I start? Or is it because I think it's meaningless? Like, do I really have to check the cable bill and see the credit card statement? You know what I mean? Like things like that. Once you've done that, you start to become aware of like, what's the resistance? Then there are techniques that a lot of smart people have written about saying, okay, so is this the thing where you need to simply say, let me start out doing the one thing. Let me just check one credit card bill, right? And in the course of doing that or whatever, you sort of say, well, I could probably get a second one done. And you get some momentum through it because you're not looking at going like this whole stack of garbage, right? It's just like, what? Today, before I knock off, I'm just going to pay the Amex bill or whatever it is, right? On the other hand, if what you're looking at is, man, I feel this resistance because I'm scared of the task or I don't know where to start. It's just too daunting. It is that thing of a journey of 1 billion miles starts with one little toe sticking out. And often, and we have some great LLMs to help now. Let's not kid ourselves. Like there is a upside and a downside to these LLMs that can help you break stuff down into manageable pieces. And I know that there's a lot. I've been asked to speak a number of times in the past couple of months about, is AI coming to eat us? And mostly people right now mean LLMs when they say AI. They're kind of conflating.
Right. Yeah. I had to do two whole shows on that precisely because it's so big a topic. Yeah.
There you go. I know. Actually, I've been talking a very long time. Do you want to interject with some of your observations or should I blather on?
Well, keep going because I think you hit 2 out of 3 and I think I know where you're going. So if I'm right, I know where to branch after this.
Okay. Or maybe I don't. And maybe you'll just swoop in and go, and the other grail, here is the true holy grail. So if you talk about, hey, how do I access, a state where I can get into this? It is true that right now, you have something that's better than maybe in the old days asking a friend like, oh God, I need to figure out how to write a book, to how to do that. You can talk to an LLM, and LLMs are not great at inventing the future. Let's be very clear. They're like Google autocomplete for ideas, right? They looked at everything in the past and they're like, hey man, if you want me to draw that pattern where it probably goes, I'll just continue the line. So they're not the ones that are going to move the art form forward, but they are going to give you a very good sense of like, hey man, 300 people have written about how to climb Everest. here are the steps you need to start training. So if you want to do it in 2 years, here's what you need to do this week. And it'll give you a nice little breakdown, Perplexity, Claude, OpenAI, Gemini, whatever you want, right? So that is a tool we haven't had before. And it's not one you can, like, it's not going to climb Everest for you. And it will do the most average job because it reverts to the mean. But it is a great little jumpstart saying like, oh, okay, you know what, this week to climb Everest, I just need to go on a 5-minute walk. And then 2 years from now, if I stay on course, I will be fit enough to actually go do this. So I'm so curious where you were going with this, because those were 2 ideas I want to bring up. You said there's a third one I want to.
Well, yeah, because you talked about a lack of meaning in resistance when the task is boring. You also talked about when the task is daunting. And you mentioned the word momentum. And there's been a lot of stuff coming out very, very recently on motivation versus momentum. And that the thinking might very likely be backwards. That when people think they don't feel motivated, they actually don't have momentum. And momentum comes before motivation. And it's wild when you see this stuff come out, and it's like mind-blowing. We've been doing everything wrong since the 80s, teaching this stuff.
Oh, I thought you were my clothing, but yeah, okay, go on, that too.
I'm for people who can't see my shirt, I am wearing opossums under a full moon. There is no wrong in my fashion, Stephen.
It's Monday. You can get away with that.
Yeah. So the momentum thing, and LLMs are just one example of how to get there. I've actually done talks when you talk about meaning, simple household tasks, the difference between, oh, I have to do laundry. And if you list out a rack of have to, you see like a weight go over the room. It's this big, heavy blanket. People's shoulders slump. They slide down in their seat. And then you go, wouldn't it be nice to have clean laundry? Wouldn't it be great if I could see right through those windows? You know, when you can see the finish line and what you're going to get, and the whole room sits up straighter. And then you hear this great little murmur of understanding. Until you've got that trick that works for you, you don't get that the tricks can work. That's momentum in a nutshell, right?
I'm going to jump in because you teed up a thought that I had. This is a while ago, a couple of years ago. I was on a podcast actually, and we were talking about, you know, that concept / expression, eat the frog, right? Which I think is a Twainism that we adopted for productivity. And for those listening who are like, what are they talking about? It's just simply the idea that in the morning, start with the hardest thing, just the thing that's ugly and you don't want to do, and it's the frog you have to swallow. Do that because the rest of the day becomes easier. I will mention this. So in my journeys over the past 10 years of understanding productivity and learning from smart people, wow, encountered this a lot. Eat the frog, right? And adopted it for myself. And I found it's not actually how I am wired. The thing you just brought up is much closer to how I'm wired, which is in the morning, I will deliberately give myself 1, 2, 3 things that I can knock out. So I kind of have this feeling of like progress and momentum. Right. That's like, oh, you know what? I could totally finish that thing out before lunch. Now let me go get the frog, as opposed to work on the frog for an hour or two. I see it's coming up on lunch. I haven't gotten anything done on my list, even the easy stuff. And I feel disheartened. And so I started talking about that. And it's funny the way some people have religion on one side or the other. Yeah. And I was thinking it's more like, man, it's just like know thyself. It's like, you know, chronotype. If you're a morning person, you figure out like, oh, like that Ron Bass thing, or like where Ron Bass would always write dialogue in the morning. He's like, I can't even talk to my kids and my wife because as soon as I start chatting with them about breakfast, I can't write these great characters that Julia and Tom and Dustin will play, right? And he was just extremely aware of that. Other people, evening writers or evening coders, you know, things like that whole San Francisco mystique of like, I was coding at 2 a.m., microdosing psilocybin. It's just, I'm in the zone. Right? God bless. If that is your thing, great. And if you're not a 6 a.m. coder, awesome. But it's not one size fits all.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think because so many people in your line of work are selling systems, that's where we get into it. Whereas you're selling an app. And I do have to break momentum to go to a commercial break. That's ironic. But we are talking to Stephen Puri of the Suka Company, the Suka TheSukha.co. I lost my momentum saying the letters, but that's okay. We're going to be back talking more about just how to start stuff when we come back on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. I almost botched my own intro. We are still with Stephen Puri of the Sukha Company. We don't aim for perfection on this show. And we are talking the Cold Start problem, starting stuff. And before the break, Stephen, we were chatting, and I realized when you were talking about sort of the planning and the studying and getting ready to do things using AI, when you were talking about AI before the break, I sort of went in a tunnel in my mind that people get stuck in that planning process because planning is easy and it's safe and it's fun and you
planning
feel like
is procrastination.
Yeah, it can be.
It can be.
It isn't always. It's about getting enough to start, but not getting so much in the fun of the what if that you can't take your cards and start dealing them out. You're just shuffling them again and again and again and again because you like the noise. What is the difference?
So you've seen the Kanban boards.
I've talked to a few people and they're really brilliant creators, but never mind them never finishing anything. They do months and months and months and months of pre-planning of their story Bible and all that stuff, and they never sit down to write the book or the script because the planning is this world of possibilities, but the writing is hard. So how do you shift gears?
You touched upon something there that I think is another interesting branch. The world of possibility. The planning is the world of possibilities, right? Here is one of the hard things about those kind of creative endeavors. I'm not talking about I need to wash the dishes and wash the windows and do the laundry kind of thing, right? But you are correct. I aspired to write a great screenplay, a great book, start a great restaurant, do whatever the thing is, right? As I plan it and I talk about it and I research it, it is a world of possibilities. As it becomes real, that world narrows and it starts to become very scary because
you start killing your darlings. Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm choosing the right thing, right? So as you approach, oh, this is the actual thing that I'm going to do. These are the words on the page now. I'm going to finish it. You approach the moment of judgment. Will people come to the restaurant? Will people read the book and want to buy it? Will people, read the script and want to make it? And that fear of rejection, that fear of failure kicks in when you're done. And often there's that resistance to wanting, to get there because of that. Coupled with, which is really a funny thing. And I think Cal had a good blog post about this, about, that fear of success thing of saying sometimes it could be not just, oh, I'm going to write the thing and no one's going to love it, but it's me. I'm going to write the screenplay and I'm kind of scared of what happens. What if people do love it? How is my life going to change? Am I ready for that? Like I dream about it. I dream about the yachts and the, parties at Cannes for my movie but am I actually ready for that? And that's a weird thing when you go, it's not just the fear of failure, it's the fear of success. It's the fear of change.
Fear of change. Yeah. Yeah. And the unknown, I think. Yeah, I think it's also a fear of judgment, which is not the same thing as a fear of failure. One of the things I've done with AI is because it's so great with LLMs are great at summaries. I'll feed a project in to be able to predict results because you're never going to be able to please everyone, right? So am I pleasing the people I want to please? And it's amazing how many times a criticism the LLM spit out goes into my pitch to sell the project because it just cracked me up. That's exactly who I want to piss off. No, that's going in. You understood me, Gemini, when you weren't trying to.
Okay, so I have a question for you about this because we were talking during the break about people who break the pattern, right? LLMs are great at saying, I see your history. This is your pattern. I'll do more of it for you, right? And great creatives, the ones that look forward and go, here's how I'm going to break the pattern. Like we were talking about the Raiders of the Lost Ark. The ending is an outlier for every other action movie because they understood the pattern so well to go, I can still make you feel even if he doesn't shoot a gun, right?
That's right.
So, and this extends to a lot of places where you just go, how do I break the pattern of this thing that's beautifully optimized? I was talking this weekend about, remember when Sarah Blakely started Spanx?
Yes.
And she had a great quote where she said, here I am cutting feet off pantyhose or whatever, right? With this theory, this belief that this could become something. And she said, I went and I looked at the hosiery department, and every single piece of, I don't know what you call it, the little things that they're sold in has been perfectly optimized through research, through, customer data. They're all like tones of nude or taupe or beige with a skinny model with her legs folded in front of her. She gently touches her legs. She's like, every single one. She's like, so I was like, I'm not going to win at that, but I could win at a red package with maybe a cartoon of me on it and just be super real and super, right? And those kind of things of saying, how do you break that? Those are hard to get out of an LLM, but this is where I'm going. Have you tried the thing where you pit your LLM characters against each other? And you say, I want you to approach this from several points of view. I want one of you to be a cheerleader for this idea, one of you to be a cynic. I want a third voice that's kind of a mediator. And I always see you've done that. You've nodded this. Okay, you're nodding. That was a new one to me recently where I was like, oh, wow, maybe I burn a lot of tokens. But interesting to see the debate about, because LLMs are tuned to be kind of sycophantish. And
yes.
We tell you all your dumb babies that look good.
Yeah, well, also, I like to do the thing where you'll get the LLM. It is this, super certain. And you'll put in one thing and it completely flips on its head. And but the reason I was like, bro, when you're talking to me like that is you start seeing the strings on the puppet. And I think that this is something, like you said, new is hard. New means some people are not going to get it. In the mental health space, new means people will absolutely try to destroy you sometimes because it is a
Yep.
paradigm shift. We know that even the most effective forms of therapy only work for max, with the most generous of standards, 45% of people. So we know we need to service that other 55% of people, but everybody's terrified of doing it because what if we make a mistake? And, if you're painting your wall and it's latex paint and you get a little on the floor, no big deal. If it's carpet, bigger problem, right?
Yep.
How do you get over that? Because a lot of people's risk detector and ability to assess and compensate for risk is utterly broken these days. We're just feared out. Our brains are just choking on norepinephrine. So,
Okay.
and cortisol and all the stress hormones. How do you get over that just fear of fear?
So interesting you bring that up. Laura, my wife, is a senior executive at a national bank, right? A lot of stress, a lot of stuff, and all this. And we talk about what's the environment at home because we have a 7-month-old now. And, how do you have a certain vibe around the house when she has a stressful job? And I happen to have a job that's making people happy. So it's a lot easier for me. And the thing that immediately brings her back is that resetting of how bad it can be. And I think there have been some Greek philosophers who've written about, men are not afraid of people, but they wrote men in the day, right? Men are not afraid of things. They're afraid of their ideas about things. And I'll just ask Laura, so if you decide incorrectly, how many people die? And she's like, you're right. We could
Yeah.
probably move the button in the mobile app a little bit and no one's going to die. It's going to be okay. Right. So sometimes that is very liberating to be like, okay, let me recalibrate here. I'm getting all wound up around like, is this sans serif font or that sans serif font going to work better on this page? It's like, honey, if that is why they choose to read your book or not, like, I'd be astonished.
There is so much out there that overvalues how important those decisions are. I have been in those meetings where it's 90 minutes on fonts, and that can
Right?
really psych you out.
Did you have a strong opinion?
I had a strong opinion about a lack of an opinion, if that makes sense, because
Okay.
I'm sitting here seeing stuff that was agonized over for 6 hours get changed in 2 weeks. And then I see things where I'm like, We're just going to make a decision because it's a decision. And that lasted 8 bloody years. And you never really know. And that actually was a paradigm shift for me with decisions. One of the
Mhm.
mantras I say to myself all the time is any decision is better than no decision because then we can test how well that decision works.
Yes.
If we're just stuck in a state of paralysis, we what
Yep.
if into infinity. It's the reason multiverses tend to be really hard to write when you've got infinite possibilities. How do you pick one?
Yeah.
And I
It
do
is. Yeah.
go ahead.
Go
Yeah.
on. I was just going to say, a friend of mine who is a very pragmatic character, she was the director of operations for DreamWorks. And she got so much done because she had a phrase. She's like, make a decision. And if you don't like it, make another one.
Make another one. Yeah.
And I was like, you're right. That's so liberating. Unless someone's dead, we can make another decision. Like all of this stuff evolves.
But the schools, bless them, are not training people to try stuff because when you think about especially higher education or any kind of certificate course, you get 3 projects and that determines your entire mark. And so every
Mm-hmm.
single one of them has to be, perfection. And that's just not possible. And
It's
we
not possible perfection all the time. What?
not in my world. I'm wearing an opossum
You
shirt,
lied to me.
Stephen.
That's why I came today. You said you're the secret.
I am sorry. The secret is there is no secret. You know
Oh
what?
boy.
You know what I mean?
Is
It's
there is
just,
there's a matrix though, right? Is there no matrix?
uh, wow, is that a metaphor that's changed, huh? And there's an example. We don't know what the future holds now, and we really don't know what other people are going to see in what we create. Even the color you pick for your front door is apparently a big, big source of debate on Zillow right now.
Wow.
What's the
Okay.
perfect front door color? Because apparently, like bold colors up resale value. We don't know.
Really? Okay.
Oh,
Good to know.
yeah. And every single choice we make in life has this charge to it. When the truth is, looking back, the color you painted your door on your second house is really, really not that important. If we even remember it. And we get stuck in meaning. We talked
Mhm.
off the top about how we need meaning to get started, but how do we keep the meaning in a place where it doesn't become like, oh, what was it called in the Neverending Story? The Swamp of Despair? That horrible
Oh,
point that
yeah,
traumatized
yeah,
us
yeah,
kids
yeah.
in the 80s where the horse dies and then they drown and how do we
Strangely directed by the same man as Air Force One and Das Boot.
that's mind bending. But
Isn't it amazing?
what do you do to not get stuck? Because that really is a metaphor for we tend to create our own problems in our decision making that way a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do we create enough meaning to get started, but not so much meaning that we go from boring to suddenly it's that other extreme of this is too big, this is too important, I don't want to make the wrong choice.
I think it's that thing of we can imagine the upside, right? There's loss aversion tells us, and this is used a lot in casino gambling design, but we're much more afraid of losing something than we're of gaining, right?
Because it feels significantly worse than gaining the same amount. Yeah.
Exactly correct.
Yeah.
So established, inarguable, lots of research on that, right? So what does that actually mean when it comes to doing things like this? Is that reaching for the brass ring may have the same degree of consequence as not grabbing the brass ring, but not grabbing the brass ring feels much worse, right? Falling instead of getting where you're supposed to go. And you really have to examine that in your head and just like defuse some of the ideas you have around the thing, which is everybody fails. Everybody. And it's so many of the greatest athletes, entrepreneurs, writers, that talk about their life. They're like, it just because I got up one more time than I fell down.
Yeah.
And that I think is really liberating when you do understand that.
And you never know. I had a kind of cool moment recently about this that There was a really prestigious school when I was applying to university, and they didn't respond. Got to me the week before classes started, offering me a spot. And at that point,
What?
oh
The
yeah.
week before class?
Well, it was such a prestigious school. They're like, who would say no? You're just going to
Oh, right.
drop
Okay. It's somewhat
everything.
presumptuous, but okay.
And that was a bad memory until recently. One of the, younger women in media that I'm mentoring had a similar experience that she just hadn't heard back from the school for like graduate stuff. And I said, okay, this is my experience with this school. So if you haven't heard back from them, don't count them out yet. This is what they do. Didn't they contact her like 3 days ago going, hey, you want in? And I was sitting here going, I have never been so happy to be right in all my life. Because it was, I was like, am I giving her false hope? But that was a situation where it didn't work out for me. But the knowledge I gave meant it worked out for somebody else. She was ready to make a very snap decision when it mattered. And it's a great opportunity. And that's something I've learned that I find motivating now. You never know what's going to be a waste of time.
So I have a question about that.
Mm-hmm.
We have, in the course of this episode, talked about some concrete techniques to deal with procrastination, with fears, or things like that. And many of these have been ground that's been tread before. I'm curious about this. When you say, hey, I had some knowledge, hard won from your own experience, that informed her possible experience, how did you convey to her your experience? How could you, we talk about we have to make our own mistakes and you keep repeating, no one can tell you how, but what technique did you live to say, hey, let me explain why you might want to heed this?
Well, one of the great things about peer support, which is the type of like mental health I do, is we don't have the answers. We walk alongside somebody as opposed to going, I am guru, do as I say. We don't have degrees. We can't diagnose anybody. We also can't lock anybody up. So it's like, look, you're the best expert on you. I'm just going to give you a piece of information that may shift your frame. And that often it's that same thing when somebody doesn't feel have to, must, should. It just feels better to be able to go, all right, well, let's not mentally close the door before I have to. And that is sort of, when you say, hey, don't count this out yet, might be something just got lost. But based on what I know of this is possible. It just means they're ready when they need to be. Okay, we're not going to be able to wrap this in 2 segments. We have too much flow. Ironically, maybe not ironically, we are talking to Stephen Puri of thesukkah.co, a flow app, a deep focus app, the Sukkah, SUKHA.co, not .com.co. We'll be back more on this, starting stuff, not being afraid to fail or succeed on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back and It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. It's the 3rd segment and we still are in the interview with Stephen Puri. Returning guest Stephen Puri, because you may notice that me and Stephen of thesukkah.co, a deep focus app, like to talk about stuff and it ends up being very like all over the place. And we went from starting stuff and the cold start problem to fear of failure, fear of success, and how the mistakes of one point in your life can be the sage wisdom of another part, where you bestow things that happen to you onto someone else that's younger. It's that giving them the opportunity to seize the moment when it's time. It's like being Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars instead of Luke Skywalker,
I love all of our movie references.
Yeah.
It's like a scene out of The Matrix where he tells his buddy about that movie Star Wars.
Well, yeah. But that's the way we communicate ideas now. That's what's
Yeah.
wild right now, right? It's not Aristotle and Diogenes and Plato. It's Yoda
And Wedding
and
Crashers.
everything Samuel L. Jackson and Lawrence Fishburne have ever made. I mean, let's face it.
Noted. Noted.
So, so what if you get down and you're starting a project and
Hmm?
you struggle? How do you break that log jam in your head? What works for you?
Okay, I'm going to plug what we're working on because this is obviously informs how we created Suka. Is we launched in the Smart Assistant a simple button. It's like break this down for me, and it will look at your task list and go, "Oh, task one is write my book." You're not going to do that in the next 90 minutes, and it suggests a way of can I create like these 13 tasks for you? Do it chapter outlines, then we're going to do a draft, that sort of thing, and it's a simple integration of an LLM.
But
But
you're
it is kind of
writing the prompts for the users so they don't
yeah.
have to know,
So
oh,
it
that's really
so it's
smart.
just a button. It's just break this down. I'm kind of feeling stuck or daunted. Can break it down, and it just goes here are a bunch of things you're gonna go. Oh, I can knock those out, and then you can start getting that momentum, which I think you and I share that feeling of like, oh, I did three things this morning. It felt great.
There's nothing worse than just sitting there staring and you realize you haven't done anything in 20 minutes,
Oh
even though
my
you
god.
know you need 20 to 30 minutes to sink into that flow state, as we've talked about on previous episodes.
Yep.
That
Spot
20
on.
minutes can really freak you out,
Yeah.
So that's the new thing on
And you need to reinforce like that sense of agency. Like it is very, I find it, and I, in speaking with a lot of productivity minded people I speak to,
Mhm.
it is very easy to spiral down that thing of like, I didn't get anything done. Oh my God, the morning's a write off. Oh God. And this afternoon I've got that. And it sort of like goes like that, as opposed to that reinforcement thing of like, oh man, it's 10:30. I knocked out those three things I needed to do. Like I'm invincible. I feel unstoppable, you
And
know?
then there's those times where you sit there and do nothing for 90 minutes and you get up and clean your toilet and there it is and you run back to the keyboard and bang it out and you feel so stupid and your hands possibly are stained blue, but you know, you
The voice of
got
experience.
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, change when you talk about running to a different room. This is something that uh, a technique I've used for a long time, especially creatively. Like my place in West Hollywood, where I would often have screenwriters over, and we would brainstorm casually there on movies. Sometimes it's nicer than sitting in the same coffee shop or the same
Hmm.
restaurant having the same. So come over to my place. I'll make lunch and we'll hang out. So there was one room I had that had a southern exposure, right? One wall was lined with floating bookshelves with a lot of like film books and things like that. The floor was entirely pillows, like pillows I'd picked up, silk pillows from
Nice.
Thailand, from India, like beautiful high end silk pillows, probably 150, 200 of them, right? So you could kind of make yourself a comfy little pile in one corner of the room, stare out the window, stare at books. And when you moved away from the rigidity of, okay, we're sitting at the dining room
Right.
table with debating, so no, no, no. We're like, you know what, let's just let this go. And we'd walk down the hall and go into that room with the light. It was amazing how it freed you of the thing you were stuck on in the other room. Suddenly it became like a whole like that paycheck thing where he looks
Yeah.
into the little wand and it sort of like goes, I where was I the last hour or two stuck on that thing? You're not stuck on it anymore.
Yeah.
It's strange the way environment can like help you that way.
Yeah, I mean, what I've sort of got from this whole conversation is that this really is more art and instinct informed by science than any
Hmm?
purely scientific, because it is creativity and, the muses are a construct for a reason. So
that you should
is
hang a lantern on that. That's well put.
the muse are a construct
You sort
for
of
a
did you sort
reason?
of threw that line away, but it's
Yeah.
actually a good line.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking, you notice they're women because they're fickle and the Shakespeare is going and don't get
And also
distracted.
women create life.
Well, yeah.
There's
And
that.
but it's interesting that I think this is part of the challenge is that we want certainty in uncertain times, and there really isn't any. It's sort of knowing yourself and knowing what doesn't work so you can just stop worrying about the things that don't work for you and keep exploring the ones that might until you get something. Is that what I'm hearing?
What you're hearing is anyone listening, I think the greatest benefit to them will be, oh man, they talked about wrenches and screwdrivers and hammers and let me experiment. All of them have been proven to do something valuable. Let me figure out which one feels good in my hand and how it works for me. So don't try and invent the screwdriver and the wrench and the hammer and whatever else, avail yourself of them. And if you're not a wrench kind of person, that's cool. But you found the screwdriver and it sure works well for you.
Yeah, and don't worry that the wrench didn't work if the screwdriver does. A lot of people get stuck
because there
on
are
that
heroes
too.
who use every single one.
And some use sonic screwdrivers. And we have not mentioned Doctor Who this interview
Fancy.
yet. That has
Getting
been
all fancy.
corrected
Getting
right
all
there.
fancy.
Okay, time
Okay.
is not our friend. I am not a time lord. But if you want to see more about what Stephen Puri does, go to the sukha.co. That's HUKHA.co. There's tons of stuff on the blog. Really great information. You can get it. What is it? There's a free trial, but now you have a
3-day free trial.
one-on-one demo as well.
It's a flow state app. It helps you get into a flow state and built on Mihai's research and but to help people. Sukha means happiness.
Sukha means happiness, and make sure I've recommended this to everybody. I've personally recommended this. Make sure you have about 2 hours to really give it a sense because you don't really, the short long doesn't give you the full sense of what it does. You need that prolonged. Not only do you feel like you're focusing deeper, but you can hold that focus longer. It really is a very cool combination of things.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, that is absolutely. It's true in the metrics. People who come for 2 or 3 minutes and they hit play and they're like, music, never sign up. People whose first session is over an hour, a year later, they're still members. Yeah. It really is a special product. So, Stephen, you are a special person. Thanks. Goodness. Thanks for coming and taking away from your family. I know that time is precious. So, hope to have you back on again because, this is a constant thing for people and people need the reminders. Would love it. Thank you so much for having me.
That music is a sign that I have to practice my task completion skills. That's our show. That was a lot. Super fun. But like I said off the top, hopefully you found something in all of that that addresses your specific issues with task initiation and you can get stuff done. Because honestly, I know a big thing for me is just telling myself I'm going to regret it if I don't try. And I have to try coming in on time. Questions, comments, any feedback. Liana at nottherapyshow.com, at nottherapyshow on social media. You're crazy is only a problem if it's hurting you. See you next time.